Oh God, hyperdimensional thinking, that's probably gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but essentially what I'm talking about here is a means of applying an intellectual process to the act of thinking and intentionally thinking about thinking. And although this might seem like an awful lot of hard work when all you've got to do is watch YouTubes and think that you know everything that there is to know, it doesn't really work that way, because obviously there's as many duff YouTubes and TV programs and books out there as there are informative ones. And this is a mechanism by which you can measure your ability to gauge that which you're being given. And again, I suggest that the use of knowledge is something that knowledge is always thought to be something that is imparted, but there's also a degree of knowing that is innate, that is inherent. I suppose that fire burns. Most babies are born with a natural aversion to flames and to hot things, much before they will have ever burnt themselves by experimenting later with inquisitiveness. Their initial response is always to shy away from it. I had an unshielded wood stove when Charlie was growing up in a caravan, and would be toddling up and down the caravan on his first teetering steps, and I would always have people like sort of worried that he was going to fall towards the stove. But I noticed on his very first steps that if he ever fell anywhere in the vicinity of the wood stove, he would fall in the exact opposite direction to the wood stove. So it was obvious that he was feeling himself unsteady and innately falling away from the object that would hurt him. So there are things that we have as innate knowledge, as things that we already know, and then building upon that as like a scaffolding for our learning, for our education, for our introduction to new things, and more importantly, our ability to consider those. Do you want to talk about that? Just kind of like peel it off from the bottom. I lost my thread again now then. Where was I? Right, yeah, so for taking on board new things, and if we apply ourselves to the business of what it is to be human, of what is so special about being self-aware, about being a conscious sentient being. There are many animals that would be able to be described as conscious, and I suspect that there are a few other than humans that may be sentient, but we primarily are the conscious sentient being. And it's my current take on the data points that I am being presented with, that in fact all of the descriptions that we are given of the otherworldly, of the superior, of be it a deity, be it a god, be it a supreme being, be it bloody alien invaders from space, that in fact what we are probably describing here is nothing other than the contricks of a no more advanced race than ourselves, which are expressing them through dimensions which are currently hidden to our everyday sight. I'm not even going to go particularly deep into that. I'm going to leave that one just kind of hanging with I've got work to do on that one. But certainly it would appear to me that any construct that involves acknowledging the existence of some object in creation that is more highly evolved, more able to imagine the universe, and I think that's possibly what our actual point here in space and time is is to imagine the universe around us, that I haven't found any proof, let's say. So that's something to contemplate there. The business about imagining the universe, I would suggest that people go and look into how the size of the universe has almost exactly kept pace with our ability to measure it. That the observed universe is, generally speaking, considered to be all there is, less a little bit. And when we go looking for the little bit more, we decide that that's now all there is, less a little bit. And it may even be possible that we're in fact projecting the universe out to its outermost edges by our newly discovered abilities to see that far. So there's one for you. That's a bit of Rupert Sheldrake's two-way seeing for you on a big grand scale. First of all, I covered briefly, I covered at some length, I suppose, but I don't think I was particularly clear on the subject. My notion of ordinary and non-ordinary reality, and I think I may have a more refined model of that with perhaps collective or agreed reality and individual reality. And if we consider these to be overlapping circles, then what we have is each of us have our own individual reality, the world that we perceive, the colours that we see, the smells that we smell, the sounds that we hear. These are often limited by problems with perhaps our sight, our hearing, our sense of taste or smell, but largely we all share the same parameters to our senses, and we all largely agree on what it is that we are perceiving. So that would be our communal or agreed reality. I particularly happen to have acute hearing, probably one of the reasons why I've ended up in the audio engineering trade, and will often be listening to very faint audio sources or of background sounds when there's a loud foreground noise, and will perhaps be able to pick up a sound, a word, a phrase, a sentence, a musical instrument, a background sound effect, and be able to describe that, and be able to return repeatedly to the area in the audio recording where I can hear that particular sound that I'm describing. Now, it's entirely possible that somebody with less acute hearing than me, not even outside of the normal range, but just quite normally less acute, may not be able to hear that. So if we are describing what we can hear, their reality and my reality fall outside of each other's boundaries. Therefore, our individual reality, while both describing the observed world without resorting to any extra wonderments or hyperdimensions, are quite simply not able to agree or tally on certain descriptors of that reality. So, if we agree that reality, or certainly agreed reality, is a communal event, that reality is something that we collectively create, and that if we place that into the model of the primacy of consciousness, which is bubbling on the edges of science at the moment, which is suggesting that in fact the motive force in the universe is the universe's ability to perceive itself, i.e. us, and that we have a direct interrelational link with all matter that we perceive, and that we act on all matter that we perceive with our consciousness. These may seem like fairly extraordinary claims, but I assure you they are entirely upheld by the current experiments being used to delve the quantum world, and the stuff and substance that we all consider to be so solid and real in front of us would very much be being held aloft by our very belief in its substance, stuff, and reality. So I suppose where we go from there is how do we now begin to coordinate our shared concepts and constructs of reality? How do we begin to decide those elements of collective reality that are unwanted, unwarranted, erroneous, and work upon them? Yeah. And I would suggest that if the primacy of consciousness is upheld to be true, then in fact we can move mountains quite literally, simply by considering the concepts that would be required to move those mountains. That this is the reality, the new reality that we find ourselves being plunged into, is the reality where we have to consider that the reality that we experience is that which we create. Again, I have to reiterate that this is a collective reality, and that individually we are more or less at the whim of the collective subconscious. And so this is possibly another reason why we have all found through our lives, through our researches, through our interactions on the forum, this desperate desire to raise the event horizon, the point at which the general public see that which is self-evident to us. So perhaps that's tied in there, I suppose. Okay, I don't know where the hell I'm going to go now. Okay, yeah, I've been, I suppose, pondering what the consequences of this are, and really, I suppose the outcome of all of this. I mean, I'm constantly banging on about my ill education or possibly miseducation. But it's possible that even any form of education, even high-level academic, university-type education, is completely meaningless without the ability to think and learn for oneself. And this is possibly the thing that is, in fact, entirely lacking from any mainstream education now at all. In fact, the higher that you go through the education system, it seems the more conscribed and refined your learning has to be, but there doesn't seem to be any requirement for any particular thinking as such. So what I'm suggesting here is a means for which, even without the access to the educational resources of the university system and of the education system, that we are able to simply construct our observed reality and consider our observed reality in such a way where we are no longer so easily fed with lies and propaganda about the way that things really are. It becomes very easy to consider the corruption of the courts, let's say, which, again, if you believe your average political or social analyst, that the situation is so complex and so ingrained that it's impossible to even think about. I suppose it's entirely possible that we could consider that we all apply the trivium inherently and innately, and in fact the mainstream education is in fact the powers that be's method with which to remove our ability to access our innate ability to learn. I'm sure that before we enter into mainstream education, we don't learn everything that we come to know before that point as book learning, as rote learning, as something that we learn by repeating it out loud. Most things are excellent.